Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I want to react to minimalism quotes. That's an idea I have for the past few months, and I thought it's just fun to look at these very generic or hyped minimalism quotes and kind of take them apart or see if I think they are true or to what part or how to understand them, or maybe I'm just understanding them completely different than you do. This is going to be a knit with me video where I knit my sweater, and I'm gonna link you the playlist of all these videos up here so you can watch them if you're interested. And I think let's get started with the first minimalism quote. I found these quotes on Pinterest, and sometimes I have an author, sometimes not. So let me know your favorite minimalism quotes, and maybe I'm making a part 2 at least if you like this video. So the first one I want to start with is "The opposite of more is enough." That is by William Paul Young, at least that's what Pinterest says. And I think it's interesting because I think that's the case for a lot of quotes, that when you think about the words, it's definitely wrong because the opposite of more is of course less. But when we think about how it makes us feel, then I kind of agree with that quote. I think this quote means that the opposite of feeling like you need more is the feeling of having enough. And I think, at least for me, that's definitely kind of true for minimalism. And that is a goal for me when it comes to minimalism. Because I think in our consumerist culture, a lot of us are always wanting more, are kind of running after the latest thing, whether it is an iPhone or a new car or a bigger house or more clothes, or these are just kind of the standard things, but it can also be more self-help books, more vacations, more skills, more courses that you have done and have a certificate that you're now mastered a skill or something like that. A lot of us want more, and I think part of it is kind of normal. Like, we don't want to, it's not a solution to never wanting to improve or progress or evolve. I think that's not the solution, but I also don't think that's what is meant by this quote. I think by this quote, it's like the thing that is meant is that this want for more sometimes isn't helpful and isn't healthy, but it just makes us spend money that we don't have or that we don't want to spend, and buying things that we don't actually need or that don't actually bring us joy in the long run, because as soon as we buy them, we want more and we are not like satisfied with the purchase. And we thought, before we bought it, we thought like that will solve all our problems, and then we buy it and realize no, it doesn't. But the next thing will, and that goes on and on and on. And there I think it's definitely true that the opposite of more is enough. And I think it is a goal of mine, and I've reached it in like certain areas, or I think it's an ongoing process, of course, to just feel that you have enough, that you feel like I am enough, how I am, where I am is good enough. What I can do is good enough. And to just, also, of course, when we talk about the physical belongings, that we think that what I have is enough. Like, I don't need more. Of course, sometimes I need to exchange something, but this constant want of, like, if I had more, this would solve a problem, is gone. Like that is a goal. And I have a video linked up here for you that talks about that, of kind of like how to stop shopping, or how to like think about something before you buy it, to realize if it's something that's actually gonna solve a problem, or if it's just you wanting more without like actually needing more. So I think it's a good quote and it's a goal, but it's kind of like, it's not the most inspirational thing for me, but I think it's something to consider thinking about, because having enough and feeling like you are enough, I think brings a lot of peace of mind and can solve a lot of problems that stuff cannot solve. And the next one is a quote by Joshua Becker, and it's, "Minimalism isn't about removing the things you love, it's about removing the things that distract you from the things you love." And I think I would completely agree with that. In general, I would never want to force minimalism on anybody. I don't think living a minimalist lifestyle, when we mean having a very limited amount of things by a minimalist lifestyle, is the solution for everybody. I don't think like minimalism should be about decluttering things that still mean something to you. I really agree with him, because I think minimalism can be used best in our lives if we get rid of the things that we don't want, if we get rid of things that hold us back from living a happy life. But, and of course that just doesn't fit in such a quote, and I don't know what he thinks about that, but that's something I want to add. I think it's also important to just acknowledge that there are things in life that we cannot get rid of. That there are things that we need to do that we are maybe not super excited about, that there are things we need to keep that we are maybe not super excited about, and also that there are topics we kind of need to think about that maybe do not fit in our happy fairy tale world. I do think it's important to kind of like at least think about and find a position when it comes to climate change, being a good person, your values, racism, things like that. I think we cannot just say, oh, that doesn't fit into my world, I declutter it, because that's not how it works. But apart from that, like for your life, for your possessions, I absolutely agree. Declutter the things that you don't want, and don't declutter the things that still mean something to you. And then the next one has no author, but it is minimalism as a lifestyle is the art of letting go. And I have to say, I'm not sure. Like, I have thought a lot about that. Because I understand this quote in a sense that essentially minimalism is about letting go. It's about learning to let go more easily. It's about letting go of kind of everything in the end, or at least not being attached to anything in the end. And I mean, that kind of goes against the quote before, because it would mean that you have to perfect that art of letting go, maybe even for things that mean something to you. And I don't know, maybe you can understand this quote in a different way, of course, but I don't think that minimalism is just about letting go. Like, I think minimalism is a lot about what you intentionally choose to keep, what you intentionally choose to have in your life, and not about practicing letting go. Because in my head now, I have a picture of people that just buy more things to practice letting go of them and declutter them, and that, I don't know, that's not minimalism for me. Also, it does not go well with my value of sustainable living, and so I don't really agree. But what I do want to say is, of course, that practicing letting go can also be very valuable, because I think most of us have sometimes attachments to things that maybe aren't necessary. But I think that's a very delicate and a very a part of minimalism that everybody has to do for themselves and find a solution for themselves. Because I think sentimental items would be a good thing to talk about, like letting go. So with that quote, I think you should let go of all of your sentimental items, because in the end it's physical items, it's not the memory, and you don't need them. But on the other hand, I think sentimental items, or just items that kind of carry a certain cultural value for us, or a certain memory, or a certain value of our families, can make our lives very beautiful. So I don't think that in order to be a good minimalist, you should let go of all of your sentimental items. I always think you can. If they don't mean anything to you, or if you want to get rid of them, get rid of them. But if you want to keep them, I definitely think you should keep them. And I definitely don't think that then it's not minimalism, because minimalism is the art of letting go. So you have to find a way to let go of your sentimental items or other things. So that is kind of what I think about this quote. And I think it can also be very healing, or you can make a lot of progress and learn a lot about yourself if you really, really, really dig deep there. If you have items you don't want to let go of, but you kind of know that you should, because sometimes we have items like that. Sometimes we have things that are not useful to us, that maybe also make us feel bad in a certain way, have bad memories or something like that, but somehow we cannot let go of them. And there I think it is worth it to really think about it, to maybe also let go of them even though we don't feel 100% comfortable with it, if we know that it's the best thing for us and for our future. But I think here we have to be really careful and decide that for ourselves, and really not just let go because we need to practice it, or because we want to be a good minimalist, and because we want to reduce the number of items we own. Yes, so I think thinking about letting go, thinking about the attachment, feeling how you're feeling about things, maybe letting go of things that are complicated is worth it. But I don't think it's the ultimate thing you need to do to be a good minimalist. Then let's move on to the next quote. That also has no author, and it's "the less you own, the less owns you." And it's another one where I think it's kind of inspirational, of course, but also I'm not sure how much I want to agree with that. Of course, if you have less things, you need to clean less things. You need to be responsible for less things. You maybe, so that's kind of true in that sense. Because I think things owning you, for me at least, means that I am always doing things for my things, spending money for my things, spending time for my things, so that I don't have my life for myself, but I spend it for my things. And maybe doing hobbies is kind of that, but you're doing it because you want to do it, so it's not the same. The things do not own you. Your hobby gear doesn't own you. But of course, if you have so many things you always need to dust each few days, if you have a big apartment you always have to clean, if you have complicated things in your life that you don't need to have, but you choose to not declutter them, and then you have to spend a lot of time on them, then maybe these things kind of own you. And in that sense, it's true. The less things you own, the less things own you. But on the other hand, we cannot live without things, because that quote kind of sounds to me to just get rid of as much as you can. And because we cannot live without things, we need a certain amount of things. I think when you take it too far, it's getting more complicated. When you say, oh, my things own me, and my clothes, for example, own me because I have to wash them, because I have to fold them, because I have to choose them each morning. Yeah, maybe that's true. But if you declutter almost everything, so you maybe only have 2 shirts and 2 pairs of underwear left, and 1 pair of pants, then your things own you a lot more, I feel, because you need to wash 1 shirt each day to have a new one for the next day. You need to wash 1 pair of underwear each day. If you don't have a washing machine, because the washing machine owns you as well, then you need to wash everything by hand. And of course you can choose that if it makes sense for your life. But on the other hand, I think that's the limitation of this quote, because if you declutter a lot of things that are very helpful, then suddenly you have to do so many things because you don't have these things that the things you still have, or the things that you don't have, actually own you. If you have a blender in your kitchen and you think oh, this blender owns me, I have to get rid of this blender. And then you want to make a soup, or you want to blend something, and the only way to do that is to take a knife and make the things into very small pieces, or to take a big piece and smush it together in a pan or in a pot or something. Then it gets so much more complicated because you don't have that blender, that in the end that blender kind of owns you, or not having a blender makes you spend so much time in the kitchen when you want to do a certain dish, that it would just be so much easier, and you would be so much freer if you owned a blender. And maybe that was a bad example, but I think there's no shame and there's no downside to owning certain things that make your life easier. And then I really don't have the feeling that they own me, but I have the feeling that they make my life easier. Maybe something where it would be very controversial is a smartphone. We spend so much time on our smartphones, and we often procrastinate and spend time that is not valuable to us on our smartphones if we scroll through social media, and then they can kind of own us. But on the other hand, if I did not have a smartphone, my life would be a lot more complicated in certain ways. And so I don't think my smartphone just owns me, but it's like a kind of, I have to be careful with my relationship with my phone, because I have to take care that it does not own my life and my time. But on the other hand, not having it would make my life so much more complicated, that I think it's absolutely worth it, and it's helping me in my everyday life. Yes, so that's what I want to say to that. But of course, the quote can be like, it can be inspirational when you think about like thousands of pieces you have in your home that you don't need. Then of course they might kind of own you, at least if you want to move, or if you want to do something with that space, or if you have to pay a lot of rent for that space, you just store your things in that you don't need. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say to that quote. Now I want to talk about a quote by Marie Kondo. Now, Marie Kondo is not really a minimalist, but there are certain like minimalist tendencies or principles in her method of cleaning up. And that is, when your room is clean and uncluttered, you have no choice but to examine your inner state. And I don't know if that's true for everybody. And I don't want to say, like, in general, I cannot really say how true that is, but it is definitely something that I experienced. And so I don't think that is I don't know if it's very inspirational, because that can be like, that can provoke some anxiety as well, if you think about it. And if you think like, oh my God, all my problems will be very present as soon as I don't have like things to distract me from them. But now you hear, I think that it's maybe a good thing, at least if you are aware of it. That's absolutely something that I have experienced. That for me it started with decluttering, but as soon as I like decluttered more, I realized with that like open mind space, I started thinking about sustainability. I started thinking about why I'm doing what I'm doing, if I'm happy doing what I'm doing, if I want to, for example, I was really not sure if I want to continue my social work studies, and I did without feeling very excited about it, and I finished them, and I'm happy I did. But yes, so I definitely had that feeling of like, wow, now I'm here, and now I really have to like figure my life out, kind of. Now I decluttered everything. Now like my outer world is in order, but now I really need to tackle like making sure that I spend my time according to my values, that I spend my money according to my values, that I think about the things, that I let things take up my mind that I think are important, and that I like maybe stop procrastinating that much, that I stop spending time on things that are not important to me, and just things like that. So I did definitely experience that. And there's another quote, and I don't have it here right now, but it's something like that your outer space reflects your inner space. And I know that's absolutely not true for many people, but for me it was absolutely true, that whenever I decluttered everything, so I had no things to distract me, or no like, oh, my only problem is that this room is cluttered, then it gets more obvious, or it helps to tackle the things inside you. But again, that can be scary as well. So I understand if you distracting yourself can be a coping mechanism. Maybe not the best, and maybe for the long run you need to get like a better method or a therapist. And I totally think therapy is something you should take advantage of if you think you would benefit from it. But I think that was definitely true for me, that that decluttering on the outside made things more obvious on the inside. And I would just to make it very clear, I did not have like major mental issues or major problems, but it was just that it helped me getting more clear on what I want, how I want it, how I want to spend my time. And I think having this YouTube channel as my job is, for example, a result of that. How I dress, how I speak, what I do, how I spend my time, for a huge part is a result of that. Because a few years ago I spent most of my time procrastinating and watching YouTube videos. Of course, not most of my time, but most of my time that I had free, that I was not working, not maintaining the household, not spending with family and things like that. And now I spend more of that time going on walks, reading, knitting, and doing things that I actually benefit from. And of course, YouTube videos can be beneficial. They definitely were for me as well, but I was just spending too much time procrastinating and watching YouTube videos, and not enough time actually focusing on what is important to me and what would make my life a little bit better. And then the next one is by Courtney Carver, and it's, I don't say no because I am so busy, I say no because I don't want to be so busy. And I think this is just an interesting one and kind of a funny one. And it's definitely, of course, true, and it kind of illustrates how we are responsible for our time. But having the possibility to say no to many things because we don't want to be so busy is, of course, a privilege. Not all of us have that much time and things we can say no to. But in general, yes. Saying no to things, saying no to people, saying no to spending time in certain ways can open up more time, can open up more possibilities for you to do what is important to you. And I think you are absolutely allowed. You don't have to say no only because you're busy, and you cannot, but you can also say no if you realize that it's not something that you're absolutely excited about. Because doing all these things that you're not really excited about won't help that many people in the end. I think it's better if you take care of yourself, if you make sure that you get like the rest you need, for example, to then focus on the things that are really important to you, to then have the possibility to have the biggest impact on these things, to do the best work, to actually change something, to actually focus your energy on the things that are important to you, whether this is family, a relationship, a business, your work, a hobby, whatever is the most important to you. So I think that's a nice quote, and I think it just tells us that we have to take responsibility over our time as much as we can, and that we are absolutely allowed to say no, not just out of necessity, but out of like an intentional choice as well. And then the next quote has, again, no author, and it's, once you need less, you will have more. And I think I know a similar quote with just like similar words, but not the exact ones, but we're gonna take that one because I just have that one today. Now that's again a quote that is, when you take it word by word, not true, because when you need less, you don't have more, you just need less. But of course, I understand. It's a lot about the feeling. When you think you need all of these things, you also always think that you don't have enough, and that you need so many more things because you need so much. And once you realize that you need only a few things, you realize that you have more of what you need. So I think that's a bit complicated. But I mean, I think when I have 100 pieces of clothing in mind that I'd like to add to my wardrobe, then I only own about 20% of the clothes that I want to own. But when I realize that all I need is 20 pieces of clothes, then I know that I have 100% of the clothes that I need. And so I have more of what I think I need. And so I do think that is kind of true. Like the less you need, the more you have. But of course, again, that is kind of a privileged thinking. And I think it doesn't work for everything, because there are certain things we need. And when we have them, it's great. But if we don't have them, we really need them. And we don't have more if we don't, like, yeah, there are just the things that we need. And it doesn't, like, you cannot say I don't need anything and then you have everything. That kind of doesn't work. But an example in my life is definitely my financial situation. I can link you videos up here where I talk about money and minimalism. But for me, one of very important thing there is that I do actually think about what I need. And I have gotten some weird critical comments about that, of people that think that I'm punishing myself by choosing to have this as my job, even though I don't earn that much money. But I have to say, in this case, when you need less, you have more is absolutely true for me. Because yes, I earn a very little amount of money, at least in some month. In other month, it's a lot better. but it is enough. Like, my life doesn't cost that much. And so I have so much more by being able to have this as my job, by being able to be self-employed and make my own schedule and things like that. I have just so much more than if I thought like, but I need to make a certain amount of money, even though I don't need it for my life. Like, I need to make that amount of money, so I need to have that job, so I need to work that much, I need to be stressed about making that much money. I don't. If I don't need that money for my life, why should I run after it and try to make more? And so I think I don't want to restrict myself. Like, I don't want to earn that much money that I cannot afford anything anymore. But I think for myself, for the moment, I found a balance where I don't feel like I have to sacrifice things that I want. I don't feel like I have to, like, I have enough. And that is, again, that feeling. Like, I feel like I have enough, even though it is a very limited amount. But for my life right now, and that of course can change, I have enough. And I'm super thankful for that. And that's such a good feeling. Even though some of you, when you look at these numbers, might think like, that's not possible. Why would she willingly earn such a small amount of money if she could work in social work? Like, I do understand that. But for me right now, I decided that that's the better solution, that I am happier this way, and so I'm doing that. And of course, in the future, I might change my mind and do it differently, but that's always possible. So I think this quote has some truth, of course, depending on the situation in life. And now I would be really interested in knowing what your favorite quote was, or what your favorite minimalism quote is. And if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up, because that really helps my channel. If you want to see more videos, I link you a video here and a playlist here that you can watch if you want to and if you have time. And I hope to see you next time.